Senator Ted Cruz, welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Jack, great to be with you.
Thank you so much. So Governor Abbott says he's feeling pretty good about his request for Texas taxpayers to get reimbursed by Congress. Do you agree? I mean, are things looking positive for that? And how soon do you think that can happen?
So I do agree. I sat down with Governor Abbott yesterday. He came up to Capitol Hill. He met with the Texas Republican congressional delegation. John Cornyn and I are both leading the fight in the Senate to make it happen. And we've got the entire congressional delegation, at least the Republicans, united in the House behind it as well. And I think it's right. Look, Texas has been on the forefront fighting to secure the border. And Texas has had to do it because the federal government under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris refused to do its job. They deliberately allowed and even facilitated an invasion of our country, 12 million illegal immigrants. And I'm proud of the state of Texas. Governor Abbott and the state stepped up and put DPS, put National Guard on the border. That they apprehended over 500,000 illegal immigrants, the state of Texas did. They apprehended over 50,000 criminal illegal aliens. And it's not right that the taxpayers of Texas have to foot the bill. That's a national responsibility. It is the federal government's job to do that. And so I'm fighting hard for Congress to pass legislation that reimburses Texas for everything that was spent doing the job that the federal government should have done under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
How soon do you think it'll happen?
I think it'll happen soon. So both the House and Senate are moving forward under a process called budget reconciliation. The Senate Budget Committee is moving forward. We're focusing initially on a smaller bill that focuses on securing the border, rebuilding the military, and unleashing American energy. And all three of those, I think there's a clear mandate from the voters to do that. And I expect the Senate to pass that legislation soon, I think within the next 1 to 2 months. There's a lot of agreement among Republicans. And listen, I was encouraged yesterday. Leaders from the White House came and joined the Senate Republican lunch. And they included within their request for budget for border security the money to reimburse Texas and other states. So that was a very good sign that the White House is asking for that funding, and certainly from my end, I think it's critical that we provide it.
Is that a big deal then?
Yeah, look, it was important that in the White House's request, they laid out a request for $175 billion directed to border security, and within that money was $15 billion directly allocated to reimbursing states. Texas has put in a request for $11 billion of that. It has by far the biggest share. And I think that's right, that the taxpayers of Texas should not bear the burden of what should be and is a national responsibility.
What do you say to Democrats? There are a couple of House members from North Texas who we spoke with who blasted the governor's Operation Lone Star and also his request, calling it publicity stunts.
Well, listen, it is unfortunate. There used to be Democrats who supported securing the border. There used to be Democrats who were willing to stand with law enforcement and keep our families safe. And unfortunately, in the era of Donald Trump, Democrats have become radicalized. You know, I think back, it was 13 years ago that the people of Texas first elected me and sent me to represent Texas in the Senate. And when I got here then, there was such a thing as moderate Democrats. They don't exist anymore. You look at the border. The election results in November were clear and unequivocal. It was a referendum on the disastrous policies of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democrats. And the result was clear. At the presidential level, the American people re-elected Donald Trump. Of the 7 swing states, he won all 7. Clear and unambiguous. The American people also elected a Republican House and gave us a significant majority of Republican Senate, 53 votes in the Senate. You look at my race, as you know well, my race was a $250 million race. I was Chuck Schumer's #1 target. They threw everything they had at me trying to take me out. We ended up winning by 9 points statewide. 1 million votes across Texas was the margin. And I'll tell you what I'm most excited about. We carried Hispanics statewide by 6 points. That's unprecedented. That's never happened before. And you look at the Rio Grande Valley. The Rio Grande Valley has been bright blue for over 100 years. We flipped the valley red. That is generational change in Texas, and a huge part of the reason why is because of the invasion at our southern border, because of 12 million illegal immigrants. It turns out that when politicians allow 12 million people to invade your home, it has a way of affecting how people vote. And you look down at the valley, they said, enough is enough. Nobody who sees what happened the last 4 years can defend it. And so I got to say, when you have elected Democrats in North Texas or anywhere who are defending these open borders, defending the murderers and rapists and child molesters and Venezuelan gang members who flooded into this country, it really shows that they're putting politics above the interest of the people they're supposed to represent.
Inflation.
Yeah.
A new report out today from the Consumer Price Index. It shows in the DFW area prices went up about 2.8% in January. So I'm wondering, how focused is President Trump? How focused are you and Republicans on dealing with that issue, tackling it?
Yeah, look, I think it is critical that we tackle inflation. The first term when President Trump was in office, we had very low and manageable inflation. And then we spent 4 years with the Democrats where they went on a wild spending binge. They spent trillions of dollars we didn't have. They borrowed trillions of dollars we didn't have. And they waged a war, in particular on energy, on Texas oil and gas, and that drove inflation to levels that have really have hurt working families in Texas and across the country. Now, President Trump is 3 weeks into office. And so it takes a little bit of time to implement policies to turn around 4 years of damage. I can tell you something that is changing already, which is the war from the federal government on oil and gas and energy in Texas. That war is over, and the president has nominated strong, principled leaders, people like Chris Wright as Secretary of Energy, people like Doug Burgum as Secretary of the Interior. And we have a clear mandate from the voters to unleash American energy. That is going to have the effect of driving down not just energy prices, but energy prices are foundational to everything else. So when you think of, you look at the higher prices we paid because of the Democrats' war on Texas oil and gas, that doesn't just impact you when you fill the gas tank. That also impacts you at the grocery store, at the department store. Every bill you pay, energy is a big factor in it. And so I believe we're going to see Texas leading America and leading the world in energy production. And I believe that's going to have a very positive effect, lowering inflation.
A lot of people are concerned about tariffs.
Yeah.
We saw the president impose 25% tariff on aluminum and steel imports, and then we're in, I guess, a cooling off period for Mexico and Canada. And I'm wondering, I mean, Texas, as you know, is the largest exporting state by far in the United States. So how concerned are you, and how concerned are businesses about the potential for tariffs raising prices?
Well, listen, when I meet with business leaders from Texas, that's the most frequent question I get, and I hear that from a lot of business leaders. What I would say is President Trump uses tariffs for multiple purposes. One of the things he uses tariffs for, the threat of tariffs, is as leverage to cause other countries to behave differently and to behave in ways that further American interest. And I think if you look at the 3 sets of tariffs he announced a little over a week ago, he announced tariffs on Mexico, on Canada, and on China. And as you know, I do a podcast every week. It's called Verdict with Ted Cruz. We do it 3 days a week. I did an entire podcast on those tariffs and breaking down how I thought Mexico and Canada were very different from China, and you should understand them differently. Mexico and Canada, the tariffs that President Trump threatened, 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, except for 10% on Canadian oil and gas. Those were designed, I believe, to be leverage. And the president explicitly said they were designed to bring Mexico and Canada to the table and to get them to cooperate and cooperate seriously in securing the border. And that is a clear and unequivocal mandate from the voters in November. We are going to secure the border. And so what I predicted on the podcast is I said those tariffs will be lifted, and they will be lifted quickly. And they will be lifted when Mexico and Canada step up and participate actively. We've seen that happen already. So the president has already suspended the Mexico tariffs and the Canada tariffs. We saw the government of Mexico commit to putting 10,000 troops on the border to help secure the border. We saw the government of Canada commit to putting billions of dollars to fighting to stop terrorists coming across our northern border, fighting to stop the fentanyl that's been flooding into our country. And so they've had already a very significant effect in terms of leverage and getting Canada and Mexico to work with us as partners to secure the border. Now, the China tariffs are something different. It is unequivocal. President Trump likes tariffs. He believes in tariffs. So we've all heard him say his phrase, he thinks tariff is the most beautiful word in the English language. And so I expect in the next 4 years we will see more tariffs than we have right now. I can tell you what I've urged the president is I've urged him to do two things. Number one, focus on China. If you're looking at tariffs, focus on China. Listen, for 13 years since I arrived in the Senate, I have been saying that China poses the most significant geopolitical threat to the United States for the next century. And so I think focusing tariffs on China makes a lot of sense. I want to see us move and accelerate delinking our economy from China. We are far too dependent on China. China systematically took over critical infrastructure and critical industries and made us dependent on China. And so I want to see those jobs come back to America or be nearshored, come back either to America or to our allies. And so I've urged him, number one, focus on China, and number two, what I've urged him is to focus on reciprocity. And this is a point that President Trump makes regularly, which is that many of our trading partners have much higher tariffs on American goods than we have on their goods coming into our country. And the reason that I'm encouraging the president to focus on reciprocity is that I believe in free trade, and I want there to be a ratchet to put downward pressure on tariffs. And by focusing on the principle of reciprocity, it gives a trading partner an avenue, if they don't like the tariffs that President Trump is imposing on their goods, they have an avenue to lower them or even eliminate them, and they can do that by lowering or even eliminating the tariffs that they're putting on U.S. goods.
Senator Ted Cruz, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack.
We appreciate it. Thank you.